invite you.
I want to invite you.
We want to invite you to be a part.
April Donnelly on the podcast.
Oh,
I can barely contain my excitement.
look at how excited he is.
Hi, you guys.
Hello.
I'm going old school with the wires because I am falling out of love with my crappy fake iPods or AirPods that only work a portion of the time.
Hey, you're great. You know, this podcast is a really big deal, so we only use high quality equipment.
Right.
We have about like 10 listeners, and they really like
I think I might be one of them. So
No, I think when we go live, I think more people, there's just a few on, like 10 to 20, but as it goes through the week, a lot of people watch this.
I'm a Thursday morning, like I tend to watch it. So I like to listen to stuff while I'm like brushing my teeth and getting ready in the morning. And that's when whatever the day, a couple days after it comes out is the like.
See, that gives me hope. So somebody out there does care.
There it is.
I was about to say, let's have an over-under on Malcolm, and then we got the text that says getting on now.
Oh, that was from Malcolm?
Yes.
So this is a special podcast, guys. We've got April Donnelly, who is one of our elders. I mean, she is driving the ship. She is definitely,
God help us all.
and then we have Malcolm Campbell, our student pastor, who taught. Oh, Malcolm!
Oh!
What's happening?
E-Money!
What's happening?
E-Money in the house, getting his hair right.
Oh man, about like 1 hour, 10 minutes, these things are going back down. Going to be knotted on up, braided on up.
You're gonna tighten it back up, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Woo! Look at it though now. Love it.
Welcome to Second Take at Eastlake, a podcast of Eastlake Community Church in Irmo, South Carolina. You are invited to join us any Sunday at 9 or 11.
So here's the question, Malcolm.
That's right.
Because you have a newborn at home, how many hours of sleep did you get last night?
Oh, okay. So Patricia had it most of the day. So what I did, I took the baby at like 9 o'clock. I'm like, go ahead, do your thing, go to bed and everything. So I had it from 9 to about 5 in the morning, and decent about like 4.5. Like he'll cry or whatnot, but it was like decent. I laid him on the ottoman while I'm in the front room, and he slept a little bit. So about 4.5, 5. It was pretty solid.
That's solid for you. That's really sad, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Do y'all do, Malcolm, I remember there was this, I don't remember like when we started this, but there was some season where Patrick and I would do the game of like, okay, I mean, when they were old enough that they didn't need to like, nurse in the middle of the night anymore, which maybe y'all aren't there yet, but we would do the game of like, if the baby wakes up before 2 a.m., it's Patrick. If it's after 2 a.m., it's me. And so whenever we would hear one of them cry, we would both be like, and like roll over and look at the clock and be like, or yes, like if it was 1:59, or whatever.
You know what time it is.
Technicalities. Wow.
We'd have some kind of plan where we would fall out of love in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like we had to have a like, okay, this is how it's gonna go down.
Yeah, well, we took turns. We took turns too. And Jenny's rule was let him cry longer than my rule was. I would go to get out of bed and she'd be like, get back down to that bed.
He'll be all right.
He'll be all right. Works the day, but the next day can sleep, and whoever doesn't work stays up with him pretty much. So I didn't have a early in the morning, so that's why I stayed up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm here. I'm ready to go.
All right.
First time on the podcast. Y'all had me on JV for a while, so I'm up with varsity now.
My first time too, Malcolm.
Hey.
I'm called up from the practice squad for this week's game. Think about the NFL. We needed a player.
Yeah.
I'm over here doing some like deep knee bends.
I'm on that 10-day. Me and Allie. We'll see how many points we put up, April. We'll see how many points God put us up on today.
Pressure's on.
Hey, speaking of points, it's time to play a game. Who's with me? All
I
right.
absolutely love this part.
All right.
It's my
Now-
favorite.
Now, normally I do my own intro music for the game, but I was wondering if Malcolm would like rap an intro for the game because yesterday he was testing his skills.
Ooh.
We did
And
that
he
yesterday.
was flowing for me, and I'm just curious. Like, here comes Phil, about to drop the game. And here
Oh, no.
comes Phil.
I
It's
saw
gonna
some of
be
this
a great
yesterday,
game.
April.
What you got,
So I didn't
Malcolm?
do it.
Oh, here comes Phil, about to drop a game. I'm so excited. Today we will play. The game. It might be about Jesus. It might teach us about learning about him. I don't know.
I
Hey,
thought you were
man.
gonna say. I thought you were gonna say. Here comes Phil. He's gonna play a game. I sure hope it isn't lame. You had it.
Oh, Rob.
That was it too.
Hey, look, you could say what you lack in the moment creativity, you bring in enthusiasm. You make up for in enthusiasm. That's
That's
what
right.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
right. All
I'm
right.
here to
So,
That's too tight.
so part of game time is you don't the contestants, which is Malcolm and April and Rob, they do not know what we're gonna play. But I'm doing a little bit of a repeat, but we're gonna make it a little bit of a change because last week the robots took over our stream and we didn't get to do this live. We had to only do the replay. So this week
Oh no.
we've got Mad Gab. But here's the best part. Here's the best part. Last week we played it where each player they had to read the word out. Like if this was it, they would have to figure out what it says. Hershey's Candy Bar, which is Hershey's Candy Bar.
Okay.
See it? But this week, because we're gonna do it a little different, one person's gonna be a reader and the other two are gonna have to guess and they have to close their eyes. So like, let's just practice, okay? So Rob is gonna be the reader and April and Malcolm have to close their eyes. You can't look, but Rob has to read it out loud. And when you get it, you have to say it and then you get the point. And whoever gets the point basically gets bragging rights. There's a trophy made of gold and diamonds.
But the reader can't guess.
No, the reader can't guess. The reader just has to read it. Okay, so this is just a test round. Just
Cover
to-
your eyes, man. I don't know, man.
Okay, so
Okay.
cover your eyes. On your mark, get set, go, Rob.
And you holy event. And you holy event.
An annual event.
Woo! Woo! April,
Ooh.
you got it. Dang. Wow, Malcolm, where you at? He still got his eyes closed.
Give me another one. Hit me.
All right, here we go.
This one. Okay. All right.
All right, read it, Rob.
Hey stray cat. 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 Hey stray cat.
What'd you say,
stray-
Malcolm?
A stray cat.
You
Yeah.
got it, Malcolm.
It's
All
a
right.
stray cat. Oh, I was like,
Oh.
certainly it can't be the thing it sounds like.
I'm
Okay.
really bad at these games. I can't believe I got that.
You
Yes.
got that. Okay, so here's the deal. I had to be a lip reader to figure that out. So we're gonna, because the Zoom audio messes us up. So there's gonna be 6 rounds of this. 6 times we're gonna do it. We're gonna go April's reading, Rob's reading, Malcolm's reading. Okay, so April,
All right.
you are up. Malcolm, Rob, no cheating. Here we go. Here you go, April.
Ear Swan Forthy Road. Ear Swan
There's one for
Forthy
the road.
Road.
Oh,
There's one for the road.
Rob with the win. 1 point, Rob.
Okay. I'll give him that. He needs at least one.
All right, here we go. All right, so now
Malcolm,
here we go, Rob. You're gonna read this one. Now it's
Oh, I'm
gonna be
reading now.
April versus Malcolm. Rob has 1 point, Malcolm and April have 0 points.
I
Here
got
we
a
go.
goose.
On your mark, get set, go.
Major concern. Major concern.
Major concern.
Major concern.
Oh, Malcolm got it. Malcolm with 1
Ah.
point.
Well done.
Robin,
Yeah.
April,
Yeah.
you're on
Don't-
the bottom. What's it like
I
to be at the
know.
Don't
I
let
don't know
this
because
big
I've never been here before, Philip. So I don't know.
don't let this big head fool you. I have big ears too.
Not just a pretty face, right, Malcolm? Not just a pretty face.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
All right, I'm ready.
Number 3, Malcolm's the reader. April and what's his name? Rob. That's his name.
All
All right.
On your
go.
mark, get set, go.
That ain't a word.
No, you got to read the words.
Right. 8-hour course.
8-hour course. 8-hour course.
Yep.
Oh.
Nope. Close your
Nope.
eyes. It's not it.
Oh,
8-hour course. 8-hour course. 8-hour course.
Oh
Read it-
no.
read it
a
with
dark
it.
horse. A dark horse.
Yep.
Yep.
April's on the
Mm.
board.
Okay,
April's
so
on the
Malcolm
board.
clearly didn't understand. The words are not the words. You're sounding out the sound so we can get the words.
Well, I don't know why I yelled
No, I
8-hour
did.
course. Like that's a
I
thing
said-
people
Like, that's
say.
not a word. I'm like,
You did it right. You did it right.
Oh.
All
Hey,
right.
but at
okay.
first it's like, that's not a word. And I'm like, you're right, it's not the right
Course.
words.
That is it. I sounded it out. 8-hour course.
Yeah,
know.
Right.
which
You
was a
did.
dark horse. Okay, April's in the hot seat. April's the reader. Malcolm
All right,
versus
you
Rob.
ready?
Everybody has 1 point. It's a tie.
Oh, this is
I'm
Neck
literally,
and neck.
I'm sweating. This is such a intense competition. Okay, hang on. Here we go. On your mark, get set, go.
Us ho hollow cheek lass. Us ho hollow cheek lass. Us ho hollow cheek lass.
Try reading it with an accent.
Feliz Navidad.
Us ho hollow cheek lass. What kind of accent? Also,
Us ho hollow cheek
lass.
glass. This one's
Us ho
hard.
hollow cheek glass.
Us ho.
Us ho hollow cheek glass.
All right,
I
if you
don't know how
guys,
to read it differently.
if you guys are online and you know the answer to this,
Oh
type
gosh.
it in.
Us ho hollow cheek glass. Hollow cheek glass.
Nope.
Us ho. What accent would you recommend?
Okay,
Us ho hollow cheek glass.
that works.
Us ho
I
hollow
will
cheek
take a
glass.
glass. I
Oh,
will
you're
take a
close,
glass.
April. The southern accent works. Keep going.
Us ho hollow cheek glass. Us ho hollow cheek glass.
Now
God
read
bless
it with
your
that
heart.
accent, but
God bless
read
your
it
heart.
faster.
Us ho hollow cheek glass.
Yep.
Us ho hollow cheek glass.
Uh,
Us ho hollow cheek glass.
would you
Us
like a
ho
glass of
hollow
sweet
cheek
tea?
glass.
Yeah, I have no idea.
All right, we're gonna go to the next one. It was a zoology class. A
Oh,
zoology.
no, it was not. It was not. No.
Lies and fabrications. A zoology class.
Chance. I was getting close.
That's
right.
hard.
Pretty
Here we go,
common
next one.
phrase, too. People
All right,
talk
Rob
about it a
versus
lot.
Malcolm. Here we go.
Oh, easy money.
Caress talk lear. Caress talk lear.
Parents
Caress
talk.
talk lear.
Parents talker.
I think the accent helps.
Caress. Caress talk lear. Caress talk lear. Caress talk lear.
Read
Caress
it.
talk lear.
Read it fast with an accent.
Caress talk lear.
Yep, that's it.
Excelsior.
Caress talk lear.
Caress talk clear. Caress talk clear.
Oh, caress talk lear. I think caress talk
Ooh.
lear.
Can I get a
Caress
lifeline?
talk lear.
Yeah, I need a shout
Caress
out.
talk lear.
Caress talk clear.
Caress
Oh,
talk lear.
my wife's gonna be laughing at me about this.
Caress talk lear.
It's crystal clear. You need
It's caress talk lear.
Doesn't sound like crystal clear.
Caress and crystal. I didn't know what it
When you
was.
start messing with, when you start having her do accents, I'm like, don't,
Crystal
just let
clear.
me her.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
That's
Caress
crystal
and
clear, just
crystal
not
to me, I was
triangle.
not.
I think this
Find
time
it.
we need like we need the southern accent does work pretty good though.
Maybe it's me, you guys.
No,
Maybe
no,
it
you
is.
were fine the first time. These are
No.
hard.
Okay, here we go. This
Okay, I'm
one,
ready. This is where the
this
magic
is
happens.
gonna be good. Okay, this one's so good. Here we go. Tiebreaker between Malcolm and Rob. Here you go. Mark, set, go.
Ooh.
Alka Seltzer.
Alka-Seltzer.
Alka Seltzer.
Rob
Alka-Seltzer.
got it. Rob got it. Rob
No,
got
he
2
didn't.
points.
I screamed out Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah, you did. You got it.
How I heard my voice before I heard his voice.
Of
How
course
is that
you
possible?
did. Of course you did.
Man.
You're a
Okay.
nappy
I think
old
we need.
idiot
To,
over
I think
there.
we need to report this to Zoom that their timing, the
That's
delays in the
right.
video are a problem, and they're really getting in our way.
That's
All right.
right.
Rob, your turn. We're almost there to the winner. Right now, Rob is
Okay.
winning. The rest of you are losing. I'm
I
sorry.
can't gain any ground here. One of you's gonna catch up.
Yep. Here
I'm
we
ready.
go.
I'm ready.
Your
Okay.
mark, get set, go.
Seniors, it is in. Seniors, it is in.
Senior
Seniors-
citizen.
Yep. Senior citizen. All right,
Oh, yeah.
April, where you at, Malcolm?
I'm not in there. I don't know where I'm at right now. My mind is a little gone right now. Oh, where can I have a lifeline? Can I like call Patricia
Can I call
because
a friend?
she's shaking her head right now. She is amazing at these games. I am.
You want to phone a friend, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. This is going to be good. So Malcolm's out. He's lost, but that's okay, Malcolm. You have a newborn and you're not sleeping much. So now
Yeah.
this is going to be the tiebreaker between Rob and April. I mean, guys, I'm telling you, I'm about to burst with excitement. Here we go. On your mark, get set, go. All right, read it, Malcolm.
Oh, it's for me. Right. All right. Scene keen, cuff that height antic.
Sinking of the
Scene keen,
Titanic.
cuff-
Oh, she got it. I was about to say it. She got
You
There
it.
you
are
go,
the
Dr. Steve.
champions, my
Got it.
Robert, yeah.
friend. Dude, how did you get that?
So sinking, that popped into my head early, and then antic, and I just
When he said
Guess.
"Cuff that," I was like, that's where I was like, oh, what?
yeah, I think it's harder to read it. Like when I only hear it, like there's a whole thing in there about auditory and visual learning, I guess, right? Like
Yeah,
I think you're
I
right.
think
know?
so. I think so. I don't know.
Interesting.
Would you like to give a speech, April, or anything?
a speech.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't prepare any remarks, and so maybe I'll pass this time, but
Okay, good enough. Good enough. All right, we're going to get to the meat of this because Michelle brought the word on Sunday. We need to make sure she's not
Mhm.
blaspheming or saying anything wrong. So we're going to really put her sermon under the microscope and analyze it. Michelle, if you're watching this, we're watching you. Don't miss this, all right? By the way, Ray is on a mission trip overseas right now, which is pretty cool. And Michelle is at a training with some of her coaches, small group coaches. So clearly,
In
these are the
Cali.
people
Cali.
in California. Yeah, these are the people that love the Lord the most on this podcast. The rest of them, who knows what they're up to,
Yeah.
right? Malcolm knows. All right. So here's the deal. Michelle was in the hot seat. We're in this series called Exodus, and she was basically talking about the 10 commandments, all these things that we should be doing that God laid out in order, to help us out. And one of the things that's really cool, and before we get into the questions, that I wanted to just say is I got to be a part of something a few years ago. Probably it was like 10 years ago, like Malcolm wasn't born yet. But
let's not start doing math. It hurts too much.
I was about 13 now. Come on now.
No more math, man.
but we hired this church I was with, hired this consultant agency to help us come up with our mission, not our mission statement, but what we're about. And so we spent all this time with these people, all this money, we paid them all this stuff. And it was this whole process. And what we came down to was basically this was the church that I was at, was there to help to tell people that there's a better way to live. It's like following God is the best way to live. And so that was we tons of time, like a whole weekend invested in this. And the 10 commandments are kind of like that. Like it is something that God gave us that said, this is the best way to do life. This is a better way to do life. And so whenever Michelle was teaching, I couldn't help but think of that. And I was just, do you guys agree with that? Or when you think of the 10 commandments, how have you viewed it? Or how did you grow up viewing it?
Well, I didn't grow up viewing it at all, obviously, other than Charlton Heston and the movie that would be on
or around Easter.
Then I could never understand why it was on Easter until I figured out, oh, wait, that's also the Passover season usually. So got it now. But, I just never knew. But I will tell you, when I first became a Christian, I still struggle with the 10 commandments in this sense, the same way probably the Israelites did. So God gave them a list and said, oh, by the way, you'll never attain it. And to me, that's always been one of the things that I'm kind of well, but God, and if you don't have the Jesus filter, it can be very easy to end your thoughts there. But once you get on the other side of Christ, I was thinking about this as she was preaching, and as I was preparing my message for this week, is the beauty of Jesus is I get to look back at the 10 commandments through the filter of the cross. And I get to see, which makes it easier for me to stomach them. But I got to say out loud on this podcast, if you don't know Jesus, first, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, the 10 Commandments can seem very daunting and contradictory. Like, why would a loving God give them a list of things he knew they were going to fail at?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good
It's a
point.
re-
Did you
I just
guys?
want to name it because that's a real wrestling match for non-Christians, I think.
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
guys ever? And you don't have to have an answer for this, but I'm just curious. Did you grow up like fearing, like, uh-oh, I better get this one right, or did you guys have any experience with it?
Well, I can say, like, I follow where you're going, Rob, and I think so I was the kid, like I grew up in church and youth group and all that kind of stuff, but I was the kid, and still maybe am this in a lot of ways in my life, but like I like order and structure around things. And so when I looked at the 10 Commandments, there were some things on there that you're like, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, don't murder, got it, noted. Right? I mean, like some of them felt like, do we
Yeah.
have to say it? You know, like that seems like a reasonable thing that most folks can acquiesce to. Then there are the other like squishier, if you will, like the coveting of anything that belongs in your name. Like, am I coveting? Is it coveting? What does it mean? Or the idol stuff. Well, like I don't have and I thought Michelle like totally in my mind, she really spoke right into that space for me. Like, you know, like, yeah, what are anything that I'm putting in that space? So there were some parts of the 10 Commandments that didn't stress me out at all growing up as a kid, right? Wasn't planning on murdering.
And funny, that's the one that always got me.
That's the one that kept you up at night.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I don't know, but I do tend to be, or can be, if I'm not being mindful, like a rule. Tell me what the rules are. Like, what is the box within which I am to behave? And I've swung the other way, right, where I have done created too many rules, and I'm not doing it right if I'm not so that opposite end of things. So I don't know.
That's good.
But let me add this real fast, and then Malcolm. But isn't it crazy that Jesus took that one away from you too, April? Because then Jesus says, you know, as he's walking the earth, he's like, "Hey, have you ever hated anybody in your heart? Well, you've murdered."
Right. Right.
Oh,
Right.
come on.
Right. Right. If it happened up here, it might as well have happened out there.
Yeah.
Oh,
What about you,
for
Malcolm?
me,
Did you grow up fearing the 10
okay.
Commandments?
So I think for every kid, like the first thing you learn about, or you just think about naturally, is like, oh, don't lie. Okay, so
Right.
like you're lying, you're sinning. I think for us was a Sabbath day, where it's like, all right, this is a holy set apart day. And I grew up in a home like we were Christians, but my mom was a busy single mom. There was 5 of us, so we couldn't make it to church all the time. So the one thing that we always try to observe, I guess, is Sunday, where we try not to watch like vampire movies or like scary movies. Or my mom, she would get on us, why you make me yell at you on a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
You made me curse you out on a Sunday. Or when we drive past the church, we gotta turn down our music because we buy a church that's a holy set apart. So, you know, Sunday was, you know, don't make me on a Sunday, you know. So I think what was
That's
confusing
awesome.
to me is like Sunday is when you get your act together, you get your radio station together. Like you don't watch these movies.
Clean it up on a Sunday.
Yeah, don't make mom snap on you on a Sunday, or else that's on you. You know, so that was my view of it. All right, just keep Sunday special, only Sunday. For the rest of the week, do your thing. So that was my.
Dude, that is so funny and so true. Don't make me cuss you out on a Sunday.
Yeah, see what you made me do.
You know what? That's what Ray's gonna say to us next Sunday. Philip, don't make me. I love it. Okay, so the greatest commandment of all that was described as the greatest is to love your neighbor to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself, right? And so that was the first one that Michelle talked about. Loving God, loving your neighbor. We have it here at Eastlake. It says, love God, love people. I'm curious, is there anything that when you think about that you're like, this is something that I've discovered, or something that has allowed, like, how have you been able to love your neighbor well? And I'm not trying to get us to toot our own horns. That's funny to say, toot your own horn. But like, is there anything that like God over the years has shown you, like, hey, this is loving your neighbor, and this is something that you should keep doing? And because one of my favorite things that Michelle said was, let's see, she said, at the end of the day, like for the strivers out there, which is me for sure, She said something to ask yourself is, did my actions come from a place of loving God and loving people? And if they did, then you're good. And so, like, is there anything in your day that you're like, yeah, I'm getting this, like, this is working, this feels right, I'm loving God and I'm loving people. And maybe other people in our church or our listeners who are watching this are like, I never thought of doing that. I'm gonna try that. Is there anything for you guys that you're like, I love getting to do this, and it makes me feel like I'm living out that commandment?
So I love that question. And that's one of the things I wrote down is the like gut check. And I
Yeah.
think, so I won't like go into all this story because it's a little ridiculous, but if you'll permit me, like recently I've been watching a particular trial that's going on in South Carolina. And I won't go into the details, but I had this moment a few weeks ago where I had it on in the background and the camera was on, the guy, and they're talking about all this stuff. And like, the only thing that kept coming up in my guts was this person, and I don't know, right? Like, I'm not getting into whatever, but like, I kept seeing him in my brain was like, he is also a child of God. He is also someone that God created and desires to know. And so it was this weird moment of like, here's this dude who, is like the center of all this, this Twitter world, and all these people are spinning and people are watching and and I'm not here to say whether he did or didn't do any of the stuff, but it was a moment of like, man, I'm having this weird moment where I'm sad for him, whether he did it or didn't do it. I'm sad around the space of like, is this what it looks like, Lord, when we're not connected with you? And when we're pursuing all these other things, are caught up in our swirl. And so I'm going down I don't know that dude, the whole thing, but it was a moment of like, oh, right. Like, maybe this is a little bit of what God is trying to get me to do in all kinds of places in my life, right? Like a little seed of grace for the, like, you don't know the whole story, and it's about the relationship. So I don't know. That's really a random place to go with your question.
It makes sense. It makes perfect sense to me, because what you're saying is a way to love your neighbor is sometimes to show grace, even when everybody else isn't. Like, I mean, that is the woman caught in adultery. I mean, that is a way of loving your neighbor. And and that's not taking a political stance or a legal stance. That's just saying
and it's all
we're
wrapped
all
up
humans.
And
We're
consequences are still consequences, right? So like that weird space of we're all, anyway, y'all know where I'm going with that.
No,
that's what came to mind immediately. Philip.
Yeah, I totally smell what you're stepping in.
Thank you. I think for me, I'm not as holy as April, so mine is not as big picture, and I mean that. Like I was sitting there thinking of mine, going, man, the one that I thought of will not even come close to that. And I love that.
There's always set some goals, Rob. Set some goals.
Actually, I'm going to go for that. But I think it's a different kind of the same. And what I mean by that is I find myself in the world that I live in the band world, in the Dutch folk world in general. I tend to love the person who is alone well. And what I mean by that is the one that no one wants anything to do with.
I see that.
And I've come to terms with the fact that that's because that's who I was. So God used the pain of my childhood, where I often was the guy out in the corner, not knowing how to express what was going on, feeling the emotions, and feeling like I'm not included. And so I think it's not too prideful to say I'm really good at loving I would only use the word reject if I was talking about myself. So I'm going to put this as of myself. I'm really good at talking about the rejects, talking and making the rejects like Rob.
Would you say my mom always says the island of the misfit toys.
Like, that's a good one.
Still perfect and loved and wonderful, but yeah.
Because even as I look over the side of this, what you can't see is a picture that Tammy Donaldson took for me of me standing over the top of the band, looking over them at the state football game. And as I look at that, I can see 7 or 8 kids that I might be their only friend. And that's not prideful. It's just like I know that as I watch the interactions. And I love that she took this picture, not knowing she was capturing the faces of 7 or 8 kids that I pray for regularly. But every one of them was me. And left to their own devices will be completely lost in the group.
I love that. And
Mhm.
Rob, I do see you do that. Seriously, I picked that vibe up from you, and I've seen you do it, and that is a gift. Isn't that interesting though, that something that was a real big struggle for you growing up has now been like your tool to love other people? That's a beautiful thing. So for our listeners listening, maybe you could look at some of the things that you struggled with in life and then see how you can be there for others through their struggle that might be a lot like yours. Yeah. Anything with you, Malcolm? Any ways that God's
Uh,
given you to love
I
people?
think I'm very optimistic about strangers. Like, okay, like, you know, like that person that cuts you off and like, I
Uh-huh.
don't know, like, are y'all like quick to hit the horn? I used to be real quick to hit that corn or whatnot. Or you see somebody on the street and you see what they wear and you're like, bro, like, why are you out here like wearing that or something? But, you know, over the years, like, you know, I'll drive past like a bus stop, you know, and I'll see a kid in like, you know, pajamas or mismatched, something like that. And the old me used to be like, this kid out here looking like a bum. But me now is like, you know what? There's a chance he probably ran out the house. His dad's hitting him upside the head, and that's the only thing he had to put on. I don't know his situation. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him the grace and, you know, and look at him like, hey, that's a child of God. I'm not gonna look at him any differently. That person's speeding. I don't know what they're speeding to. I don't know what they're speeding from. Like, you know, just like giving them, you know, that grace and everything. So just for me, just, you know, the stranger that I come across, you know, just being real, you know, optimistic about them is something that uh it's been a gift, something I'm really excited about, because you know you never know, and it's really
Right.
cool to work with youth because you let them know, because they'll tell you like this person this or that, and I'm like, okay, but you know, imagine this happening, and they're like, well, that's just a scenario. I was like, no, not that happens to people, you know. And so it's cool, and being able to walk that through my son, because you know on the school bus kids get, you know, kids remarks, bullying or whatnot. I get to walk my kid through that. And, you know, hey, listen, that person that's teasing you, I don't know what's going on at their house. You know, we
Right.
don't know what's going on, like where they learned that from. You know, it's not. So that's something that I've always kind of been gifted with. I'm aside just optimism for like that stranger, like their situation they're
Mhm.
going through. That's how I try and love my neighbor, you know, as best as I can.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Seeing the best in people, not the worst. Where
Mhm.
most
Which
people see the worst.
do y'all think so what I think is especially cool too is that like it's all the sides of it, right? So I think sometimes in church, I mean, I don't know about y'all. In my mind, sometimes I think in church, like big church growing up, it's always about like it's the widows and the orphans, which yes, right? Amen. No, yes. But it's also like the jerks that cut you off in traffic. And I think sometimes you know, to use your example, Malcolm, and I think sometimes it's easy. I don't know if easier is the right word, but like I can find my way down the path of like, you know, who I see, you know, in the marginalized space, but I have to check my pride. And I like, that's like, I have to check my pride at not making assumptions about people, any people, right? On either side of the, you know, the widow and orphan down to the like high rolling folks.
Mhm.
And it's also like I think it's having grace for the people that like I want to throat punch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you put those together, grace and throat punch? But like that space of like, man, I gotta find a way. I gotta think that about you too. You know, this person that's like, and that for me sometimes feels much harder, like a much higher hurdle to get over
Mhm.
than and then equally that point around like let me be careful about making an assumption in my own mind about people I mean too, right, in terms of like, oh, you know, marginalized. Well, yeah, but like sometimes I think those folks are like, I don't need you, like I don't need you making assumptions about me either. Like that's a
I'm
real thing.
fine.
So there's a pride element in all of this that I think
Yep.
is it's big in me. I can't speak to anybody else, but I think that's
Yeah.
something that God has been showing me over the last so many years and been like pressing on it in places that hurt. And then I'm like, yeah, okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
for what that's worth.
Well, you know, like it's interesting. A friend of mine told me this, and it's true, of like caring for the widows and the orphans. And he talked about how many things in my life I do for people who can offer me something in return.
Mm.
And so like a lot of my actions in my day can actually be because these people give me something in return. Like I'm going to be nice to you because you're my boss, or I'm going to be nice to you because I need you to give me these, I don't know, whatever it is for your work.
Right.
These documents need to be turned in, or I want, a lot of times our actions are done because the thing that that person will offer us in return. But to care for the widows and the orphans is almost another way of saying to do things, to love people with nothing expected in return. And when I go
Right.
through my day, my inventory of my day, that's a lot more rare than I'd like it to be, you know.
Mhm.
And so it would
Mhm.
be interesting for you guys listening. I always like to drive it back to the people listening to do an inventory. How much of your day is spent doing things for others that gets you something back, even if it's just, I do this for you because you make me laugh. Well, that's even something in return. But how many times do you do something when you receive nothing back? You just do it
Mhm.
just because, and that's just something to ask yourself. Um,
Hey, Philip, that harkens back to our last series too. Just thinking about, it actually was the one that I preached by coincidence, but the book "With Love Like That," and the idea of self-giving. Like self-giving isn't for return; it's for giving. You're giving yourself, and
yeah,
actually, you're not expecting a return. And I think that that's a really important difference in the way the world would say be selfless, and they're talking about being selfless in a way that is like so selfish sometimes, to be honest. And Jesus is calling us to be selfless in the sense that we really do not expect anything in return except for maybe a smile from Jesus, because that's a cool thing. I mean, and that, but I think that's a really good distinction for us to think
yep,
about.
that's good. Yeah. So there's a lot of commandments. We won't be able to do them all, but one of the ones that kind of stood out to me was to not have any other gods and to not have idols and different things like that. And when we read that or we hear that preached about, so often we think like, oh yeah, we don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Those people were crazy with their golden, statues, and we don't do anything like that. But I love the statement that Michelle made. Let me see, I wrote it down. She said, having idols was a way to create control of the things they can't control.
Yeah.
Sacrifices of repentance rather than sacrifice. Oh, so the sacrifices that God's calling us to make is sacrifices of repentance rather than sacrifices of trying to gain control. Like, I've got a God of rain. I need it to
Right.
rain. I'm going to create this so that I can get my rain. And it gives me a false sense of control, right? I need it to rain because I'm a farmer, or I got a God of, abundance. And if I feed this God of abundance, then that next year is going to be a good year. And all these idols had to do with like, I want to feel control over my life. We do that like today with like karma, like I'm going to tip because it's going to come
Right.
back to me. And there's other idols too, but this was the one that Michelle hit on. And she said, God calls us to make sacrifices of repentance rather than sacrifices of trying to gain control, because they were making sacrifices to these idols. And I don't know, I was just, what do you guys remember that in her sermon, or did anything strike you on that part? I don't really have a great question, but I would love to discuss it. Well, guys, I'm not like a real host or anything.
Well, I think
Barbara
about
Walters over here. Dr. Phil, I feel
You
you,
get you
dog.
some Sally Jesse glasses, some
Yeah.
red Sally Jesse.
when I took my world religions class, we had to visit other religious locations. Like we literally had to attend services at a Hindu temple.
Yeah.
And this is when I was in Moody. And one of the things that struck me is, here's what God said to me that day. When we went in there were people literally leaving bananas and apples and oranges at the foot of a golden statue. And I am in there steeped in my judgment of them in my head as I'm sitting on the floor. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
How could
then
you?
I left. And it was just when cell phones were coming out. And I picked up my cell phone and I start going through my cell phone and I start messaging people and I start going crazy. And God hit me way back then. This is like 2008, 2009. So we're talking like the old phone.
Oh yeah.
God's kind of like, put your idol down.
Seventh grade.
And I was like, oh, And so I love what Michelle said. I love what you just said. Idols, yes, they're those things, but idols really are these things, and our sports teams and all these other things, all of which are not bad things. That's the one thing I love about what Michelle said. They're not necessarily bad in and of themselves, but once we use them as our comfort instead of Jesus as our comfort, we're no different than these Israelites that he was worried about walking around with gods in their hands that they would set down at every place that they went to. And so I think it's really important for us as Christians to realize we do not have idol repellent just because we have Jesus.
Yeah.
We've got to be intentional. And in some ways, it's more insidious now than ever because it's not a gold statue.
Mhm.
It's a time sucker, or it's a relationship buster, or something like that. And I think that's really important to think about. And so maybe that's the question you're asking is, what are the idols that, if we're not careful, become those idols of the past in the modern day
Mhm.
that we feed with our time and our heart?
Yep.
Something that being from the fitness world and everything that I use to kind of help people that have the idol of like gluttony or just don't have self-control with eating, and they're like, I'm struggling, and I ask them in that moment, when you want to eat this, ask yourself, are you spiritually hungry or are you physically hungry? Two different things. Because if you're spiritually hungry, you're going to be a bottomless pit. And so having that difference. And so when I look at myself, like because I stay up late with my son, I like YouTube music videos. Like, it just really, settles me and everything like that. But if I am not complete, or if I am not complete spiritually, I mean, it doesn't matter how soothing the song is. I'm still going to have unrest. And I keep going more and more and more. And it's like, I'm unsettled. Just let me just listen to some more ain't nothing wrong with R&B, something like that. And I love, besides the R&B, I love self-help, motivational talk and everything. But all of that self-help, that stuff stops at the spiritual feeding, So that's something that helps me out a lot, making sure my idols are not, are you looking at your phone and you're like, okay, you're looking at for messages in inboxes, are you doing that because you genuinely want to like see who's contacting you, or do you just need some comfort right now? You're really hoping you get it. Are you spiritually hungry? That's what really helps me out a lot at the time.
I think too, Malcolm, the piece that I think I'm like, over the last couple of years in particular, like coming to understand or learning more about is that, like, I think, so to Rob's point too, so this idea of like the idol being this physical thing, either the golden calf, or even nowadays like our phone. I think that's true. I also think there's that space where, and Rob made the point, like, it's not the thing, it's the value and heart posture we have toward the thing, or in connection with the thing. I'm coming to learn too that, it's like these seasons and the ebb and flow where, like, you were making me think about it with regard to like self-discipline. And so I'm in this season where I think he's working on me in that space in some different ways. So, and like, I have some good habits, I have some bad habits. I don't think any of those things in and of themselves, the habits, it's not about like that thing. It's like my posture towards it, I think, is what I'm hearing you say. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with watching a video. It's like, what am I subconsciously seeking from that I don't realize? And then I think the next step past that, which to me, this is the hardest one to go to, right, is like, oh, so what does that mean? From right, like, okay, so I should stop watching the video, right? Like, that becomes like the practice, like my desire to be very black and white is like, oh, well, I stopped doing that. And then like, now what do I do? Or whatever. And I think it's almost more of a, he's almost calling me more of a like, hey, I want to know you more. And it's not just put down the phone and pick up your Bible. Like, yeah, that's good and important, but it's less about like replace one habit with another habit. And like, it's like the posture of me and all that space. And so which I'm being squashy, but I think sometimes the churchy answer is like, when you put down the bad thing, you have to immediately pick up the good thing right in that moment. And that's not bad. Like, it would never be a bad thing for me to read my Bible more. But at the same time, all I'm doing is for me anyway, it's sometimes I replace this behavior with this other behavior to get the thing. And I'm not really like stopping for a minute being like, Lord, why do I do that? Like, what, are we not okay?
Yeah.
And trying to have that conversation with him, I guess, or that the feelings piece around it, so that when I do sit down or when I am reading or writing or whatever, that it comes from that place, not just a like, no, this is me putting down the idol and picking up the good thing. Like, see, Lord, look at this good thing that I'm doing. Like, there's
Yeah.
a space in there that's like,
Reading idols.
yeah. And I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but I think a lot of
Yeah,
my
no,
life has been about the performance of the good thing, right? Like, let me show you, Lord, what I'm doing that's will make you happy. And I think sometimes he's like, oh, girl,
Yeah.
we got to try again. Oh,
Yeah.
Malcolm's like, you talk too much.
We
I gotta
lost
go.
him.
Malcolm's gone. Well, let
He'll
me build on that. I thought he was
He'll
going to
come
say
back.
something, so I didn't. But with him
Yeah.
gone, I think this also ties into something else that Michelle brought up early on in her sermon, which was the idea of the generational sin and generational freedom.
Mhm.
Because I think a lot of times these idols, okay, let's go out bigger macro,
Yeah.
come to us through either nature or nurture, as she said. Who knows which one? But you know, for me, I had to come to terms with the fact that my family very clearly worshipped alcohol.
Mhm.
It was a worship. I mean, it was something that was a central piece to everything, which is what led to me, I think, being just predisposed to alcoholism. But I had a chance, and I think we're doing a good job of breaking that and changing it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not giving my kids any idols. A whole set of new ones is, I think, what sparked my memory about trading idols. But the reality is we have a chance to break those even generational idols in our family, whether it is the strive for success idol or the,
Mhm.
again, there's nothing wrong with striving for success, or, you know, the obviously bad ones like the porn addictions and the things
Right.
like that from generation to generation. I think the cool thing is that God allows us, and the 10 Commandments allows us to put a filter on our lives, to put everything through the idol filter. And
Mhm.
anything that's sin is an idol. That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
But we can also put the healthy things, and they could be healthy, through the idol filter and realize, oh, I've managed to make that unhealthy. And I think that's the beauty. Back to where we started, the beauty of the 10 Commandments, as hard as they can be, is there a filter that we look through and realize that we don't have any hope, except for that we have all the hope in the world because Jesus has come to fulfill the law so that we could have freedom, not from the law, but from the consequences of the law because of his grace. And that's how generational sins, for instance, and idols are broken.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Always be worshiping the creator of the creation, not the creation.
Yeah.
There it is.
Did we move on to generational sin? 'Cause I got cut off for a second.
I twisted it. I tied together how just like idols, sometimes idols are generational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, in some ways, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I worked for a dude that really successful guy, and I worked for him for like 6 years, and again, success is not the idol, but he had a generational sin, or a generational disposition, I'll say that,
Mhm.
to overeating. And I remember I had a lot of meals with him because we'd have lunch together all the time, and he would always leave food on the plate. Just a little bit, like 1 bite, 2 bites. And he said, and I asked him about it. I was like, you never finish your food. And he goes, I like to remind myself that I'm in control and it's my way. Like he said, this 1 bite is not going to make a difference in my day. But by me not taking this bite, it allows me to just have that discipline and that reminder that like I'm in control of what I'm eating, and I don't have to I don't have to go all the way. Because he grew up different than that. And so for him, he still to this day, he's a grown man. He was probably 55 at the time, and did that. And it just stuck with me. So yeah, idols and generational dispositions, they go hand in hand. You know what else is interesting too is I've finished a Sunday. It's just like anybody who preaches. I'm sure Rob experiences this, which it's not always true, because there's always going to be people after you preach or lead worship to say, wow, that's so great. And they just don't know what else to say to you. It doesn't mean that you were actually great at leading worship, but
Right.
but it just means they don't know what else to say. But I think that a lot of people have told me over the years that, man, worship today it was what I needed, and da 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 da. And I love hearing that. But you know what's happening in that moment? people are putting things in the places they should be. The idols, the creation, the cell phone. I mean, that's the most obvious, or the whatever it is that we worship in our lives is pushed aside. And one day a week for many people, everything's aligned and pointed towards God, and it just feels so good for them.
Mhm.
But what I want to say is it can be that good all the time.
All the time.
All the
Yeah.
time. You know, worship is not just like God is right there, you know, and he's with you all day long. You can have that joy and all those things that you experience in here. You can get that all the time. Just don't look for it in your phone. Don't look for it in success. Don't look for it anywhere else. Look for it
Right.
in God, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did I
Yeah.
cut you off, Malcolm? Were you going to say something?
Oh,
about
no.
money?
No, I was, I was thinking about, the idol, that you have, like the generational, sin or condition. And in my family, it's definitely mental health. Like mental health is, and how we've gone into handling in my family line is we don't do counseling, we don't do anything like that, like we don't do anything like that. So it's led to a lot of different bad paths with mental health and ability. So I have a it. I got ADD and ADHD. If you didn't realize that, I got that.
I love it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Excuse me.
So a
We
lot
were
of
shocked.
some of my family members, we would use that as an excuse to, this is why I don't do this. This is why I need help. This is why. And what I had to realize in this season is, Malcolm, you're with your ADD, you get hyper focused on one thing, one in particular thing. And if you're not intentional, you get hyper focused on yourself. And so I get very focused on myself and don't even realize how selfish I'm being. So if I, and that becomes an idol. But now I understand, like, okay, Malcolm, you really have to have a schedule. You cannot be without a schedule, and you cannot be without being intentional. Because if you don't, you're going to be hyper focused on yourself because you're attention deficit. But I feel like God can, he can take and he can transform that generational issue and whatnot. And so now I look at my ADD, my mental health challenge, as a benefit, because now I can turned out to be very hyper focused on my family and my kids and good things, So yeah, I think there's a way to turn it around. I think there's a way to warp it towards God's good.
Well, and what I hear you saying too, Malcolm, and this has been really true for me in the last, like, I think for a long time I looked at things like when I would finally, become aware of something, right? When God would like call it out, and finally it would rise to the top and it would be sitting there, right? For me to look at and be like, ugh. My proclivity would be to be like, okay, Lord, how are we going to beat this? Like, what is it that you're going to do? Do your thing. Like, I'm all right. Okay. I'll do that, and I think in the last year or so, I mean, and maybe tell me if I'm hearing you right, that like some of it, like, he's not going to beat it for me. Like some of it's going to require me to like, okay, it's probably never, your penchant for this idol in your life is probably may not ever go away. Sometimes I think he will help us rescue us out of things sometimes, but I think more often than not, he's like, look, you're in your humanity, in the design of you, this is a thing in your life. And so I don't know if it's ever going to go away. But it's something that so like daily and in different seasons, it shows up, but there's a daily almost have to be like, all right, Lord, I mean, help me not click add to cart today. Right. I mean, like, let me just put it out there. Right.
Send it to the wish list.
Yeah. So I think I've had this season where he's like, hey girl, how are we making ourselves feel better about whatever it is today? Like this gentle moving me along and being like, yeah, I'm doing.
So that's so true.
But it's like it's like a daily thing almost. And there have been seasons in the last couple of years where it has to be like each morning I have to be like, all right, Lord, get like I got 8 hours in front of this screen for work stuff or whatever. Like let's like help me be mindful and intentional about this today. And then there's other where it's not a problem, but like it's not like he comes in and it's like, oh, now that we've dealt with this together and you have acknowledged it and repented of it and I've forgiven you and we're moving on, you'll never deal with it again. Like, no, I wish, but for me, so it really does have to be in some seasons a daily, like, all right, Lord, like,
Yep.
I don't know what it is going on today, but I need a little help. Like, I need to
It
like
is.
Holy Spirit activate or whatever in this space. Cause I like,
Holy
you know,
Spirit.
so
No. Malcolm, no.
I love it.
Holy Spirit, activate.
That's right. I love that you share that, both
Ah.
of you, because guys, that resonates with
Mm.
all of us, everybody. And God does leave those things in our lives many times because it's a daily sacrifice to him and a reminder that he's in control. It just is. I mean, like, life
Yeah.
is discipline, life is sacrifice, and it was the same way for Jesus. Nobody's exempt from it. This world involves discipline,
Right.
sacrifice. I love it. Well, we're gonna have to finish up just because we have to go to work. We're filming this in the morning. We have to go
It's
to work
weird.
today.
This is
And
so
get-
weird. I feel like my whole day is gonna be
Mhm.
like lost.
I know.
I'm at
Mhm.
work.
Woo, April!
That's all right. I took the hour, but
Malcolm, Now, I will say this: I'm really glad that we had April because she played the part of Ray very well. She dropped dimes and stepped on feet really well today.
Yeah.
let's
Shopping cart, like I can just see people cringing, like as they're listening to us with their finger on the Amazon shopping cart, going, "Oh, April!"
look, it is me, right? Like I'm being up front because that junk in the dark does not do me well. Like
Yeah.
get out there.
Patricia, there's been several times she wanted to go upside my head about the Amazon purchases, but you know what? That wish list helped me out. That's a new form of window shopping. The wish list, put it on there.
Somewhere upstairs, Patrick is rolling his eyes at me right now. And like, yeah, you say that.
Yeah, the worst thing that I got was the try before you buy, and so they send it to you for free,
Ooh,
and then
For
you forget,
free.
and then you
Okay.
forget you bought it.
don't tell me that.
Back on
Listen,
time.
man. Listen, man. Yeah, they're good. They're good. They're real good. Okay, so
Well,
we're gonna wrap up, but to wrap up, I wanted to read a statement. So this is a quote from the Message this Sunday, and it was close to the end when Michelle said this. It says, "We don't do these things," and talking about the 10 Commandments, we're talking about discipline, we're talking about all this. We don't do these things to get in God's good graces, because there's nothing we can do to be in God's good graces. We do these things because we are so grateful for what God has already done, and because we want to flourish. It's like, and I just love that. We want to flourish. God basically said, this is a good way to live your life. It's the best way to live your life. You don't have to, but it's good. Discipline is good. Sacrifice is good. It hurts,
Right.
but it also benefits. And so Michelle really did great.
and we're called to flourish, not like be
Mhm.
not sad, painful mediocrity.
Yep.
Which, you know what I mean? Like flourishing is a great word. That's a great word to me.
Bad, painful couch
What is-
potatoes. We're called to have discipline and to run a race and to do things. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so everybody, we love you. I think we're gonna sign off. Did you want to say something, Rob? We got
I
1
just
minute.
wanted to say I'd love for everyone to be praying for this week's message, because this week's message is brought to you by everything but this version of the Bible, because not a single passage I'm going to preach about is found, including the New Testament passages I'm using, is found in this Bible, which should tell you something about what they were nervous about.
Yep, that's the slave
when we
Bible, by the
get
way.
to the next
Mhm.
set of passages. As a matter of fact, there's none of the rest of Exodus available for you to read in this Bible.
Yeah, that's the slave Bible that was
As though
done.
man could keep it at bay, though, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's crazy. All right, we love you guys. See you later.
All right,
Thanks for having us.
Oh, right there.
Eastlake Community Church is an intentional, multicultural community empowered by the Holy Spirit. We passionately pursue a loving relationship with God and everyone Jesus was sent to die for, here, near,